If your team's not going to play 600 ball and make the playoffs, you must rebuild your franchise. I know you've tried it before. It may or may not have been successful. And did you really get a championship team out of it? To get a championship team out of your rebuilding process, you must take the concept of rebuilding to its logical extreme to ensure the maximum amount of talent in the future. You have to distinguish between current value and future value. Current value, we all know, is the value of the player's card this year, how much it helps a team right now. Future value is much more difficult to quantify, can be over any time period, and it's how much that player will be worth in the future. By its nature, it's unpredictable, and for that reason, you must get significantly more future value than current value when you're making a trade. I usually try to get 3 things of excellent future value for one good piece of current value. I try to get a top 10 prospect, a #1 pick for next year, maybe another draft pick or another solid player or a veteran rebuilding from a bad year, so hopefully they'll be a good rebound candidate. I try to get 3 good future value things from one current value. First, to determine current value, though, you have to figure out, is the player worth more now or later? Is he going to get better in his career, or is he going to be the same or worse? If he's going to be the same or worse, this is the kind of guy you have to trade now because his value is at the highest it's ever going to be. Even if a player has a good current value now, and he may have just as good of a year next year, you have injury risk, and you have the risk of having an unbalanced player card. Guys like Sean Markham this year had great stats for 2010, but his card wasn't so good because right-handers just crushed him. And that happens every year, especially with pitchers. You have a higher injury risk, and an unbalanced card can really hurt a pitcher's value. So even if a player is going to be just as good next year as this year, you want to explore trading him for more future value because the odds are he won't be as healthy, as good, and as balanced as he would be right now if he has a high current value. The next thing you want to do is make sure you're assessing your players objectively. Get some offers out there, solicit some offers to see what others think of your players. You may be surprised at the value of the packages you get to the plus side. If you don't get something that's significantly more future value than current value, obviously you want to keep that player. You also want to remember that flexibility is the key in rebuilding. Flexibility meaning that in the future, when you are good, you want to have as many different ways to trade to get what you need as possible. That's again why I get several different things for my current value player, and it's why I enjoy gathering as many future draft picks as possible. Several reasons here. One, we can't predict the future, so by getting future draft picks, you're limiting your mistakes in guessing on a player. Did you guess Justin Smoke would have a great 2010 because he was a top 10 prospect? If you got a #1 next year instead of him, you wouldn't have to guess because you'd have that pick in hand, and it saves a roster spot this year. So future draft picks give you the most flexibility, and they're the easiest to trade because we all have different values of players, but when a draft pick comes up, each manager can select the guy he likes in that spot. And if you can trade during the draft, that's an especially great time and great reason to have future draft picks because we've all been in a draft and we can't believe a certain player has slid a round or 2 below where we thought he would go, and we may want to pay a little bit more to get that pick, to get the player we had targeted all along. So getting future draft picks gives you lots of flexibility. It also spreads your risk. You may have the best prospect ever right now, but if that prospect blows out an arm or a knee, it's suddenly worthless for the future. So by getting more things, you're spreading your risk among more players. And by getting future assets, you ensure that your team will be good down the line when you need it. Sometimes you can rebuild in 1 year, sometimes it takes 3 years. But when that year comes that your players have all paid off, you want the most flexibility possible, and that means getting the most picks or the most numbers of players that you can. If you have 3 good first basemen, you can always trade them for what you need, one of those extra ones if you need a pitcher or a third baseman. So don't worry about the positions. Make sure you're just gathering future assets so that you have the maximum future value both on your roster and your picks. For Strat-O-Matic Strategy of the Month, I'm Matt Beagle. Thanks for listening.